I never meant for things to go this far. When I first looked at him, standing there in the mirror, I couldn't believe what we'd done. My boyfriend, my sweet, awkward, stubbornly shy Daniel, was gone. And in his place stood someone breathtaking. Someone I'd created. Her reflection was unreal. Soft lips, long lashes, that nervous look in her wide brown eyes. She clutched the hem of her new dress like it might bite her, whispering, "I can't believe this is me." Neither could I. It started as a joke, or maybe as a challenge. Daniel always teased me for spending hours on my makeup, for caring about looks. So one evening, while we were binge-watching old reality makeovers, I laughed and said, "You think it's easy? I bet I could turn you into a girl so convincing, no one would ever guess." He smirked. "You? Turn me into a girl? Please. I'd still look like me in a wig." That smirk. I couldn't resist. The next day, I brought out my makeup kit, foundation, contour, wig, even one of my old dresses. It was supposed to be harmless fun. But the second I brushed the foundation across his cheekbones and watched his features soften, something inside me shifted. He went quiet. Still. Almost mesmerized. When I fastened the wig, brushed his hair out of his face, and said, "Okay, look," he turned toward the mirror, and the air between us changed. He gasped. I swear, his hands trembled. "Is that me?" The room felt too small for what we both were feeling. Shock, disbelief, curiosity. His voice cracked. "You actually made me pretty." And I didn't know whether to laugh or apologize, or just stare. Because somehow, he wasn't just pretty, he was stunning. That was the moment I realized. I might have started something we couldn't undo. I never expected a single audition to change us. Daniel, my quiet, soft-spoken boyfriend, landed a last-minute role in his university's spring musical after someone dropped out. The catch? The role was female. He'd said yes as a joke at first, but when he told me, his voice was shaking. "I can't back out now, Mia. The director's counting on me." So we stood in front of my mirror that evening, makeup brushes and wigs scattered across the vanity. I promised I'd help him rehearse, help him become the character. At that moment, it was just acting. Just art. But what came after changed everything. At first, it was supposed to be practice. An hour each night, posture, gestures, the way to hold a conversation in character. But Daniel threw himself into it with this surprising intensity that even scared me a little. He'd repeat lines again and again, softening his voice until it sounded almost melodic. He practiced walking in heels across the living room rug, biting his lip every time he wobbled. I tried not to laugh. "You're going to twist an ankle before opening night," I said. He smiled, not his usual shy smile, something brighter. "Then you'll have to carry me on stage." Days blurred into weeks, and my apartment turned into a costume workshop. Lipsticks, blush palettes, scripts, all over the place. He'd show up after class, hair damp from a shower, and ask, "Can we rehearse the cafe scene again?" Somewhere between the laughter and the rehearsals, I realized how different he seemed when he stepped into that role. More confident. Freer. He'd laugh louder, talk with his hands, move like he wasn't afraid of being seen. One evening, my best friend dropped by unannounced. Daniel was still in full costume, dress, wig, stage makeup. "Hey, he started, then froze. My friend blinked. "Oh. Sorry, I didn't realize. Who's your friend, Mia?" The silence was excruciating. Daniel's eyes darted to mine, panic flickering behind the false lashes. I jumped in. "This is Danielle. She's in the show with me." My friend grinned, oblivious. "Oh my God, love your look." And just like that, the lie was born. After she left, Daniel slumped onto the couch, half laughing, half mortified. "You're an awful liar." "You started it," I teased, sitting beside him. "Next time, just own it. You were perfect." "Perfect?" he repeated, almost whispering. The word hung between us. For the first time, I saw something uncertain in his eyes, as if he wasn't sure which version of himself I was talking about. Over the next few days, he started keeping the wig on longer after rehearsals. Sometimes, even when we weren't practicing, He'd still have a touch of eyeliner on, saying, "Forgot to wash it off." But I knew he hadn't. When his dad called one evening and asked what he'd been busy with lately, Daniel stepped into the hallway. Just theater stuff," I heard him say. "Yeah, I'll tell you later." His voice sounded small. Like the walls he used to live behind were cracking. And as I watched him from the couch, the curve of his painted lips, the nervous fidget of his hands, I realized, the act was no longer just about pretending. Something real was awakening in him. And in us. It started subtly, almost innocently. One night, after a long day of rehearsal, Daniel didn't rush to take off the wig and costume. Instead, he lingered in front of my mirror, brushing the long hair so carefully I could see the focus in his eyes. "You know," he murmured, his voice soft and cautious, "I feel different. In a good way." I tilted my head. "Different how?" He shrugged, fingers trailing over the lace collar of the blouse. Like I can be someone I'm not usually allowed to be. Bold. Seen. Not invisible. I didn't know how to respond at first. I'd known him for years, shy, careful, hesitant, but now he looked at himself in the mirror like he was discovering a new world. "Try the lipstick," I said gently, holding out the rose shade he'd tried once during rehearsal. He froze, then chuckled nervously. "You're serious?" "Completely." He dabbed it on. It was messy at first, but I guided his hand, and soon the color matched perfectly. His eyes widened. Wow," he whispered, tilting his head, "this actually feels right." And right then, I realized he wasn't just enjoying the transformation. He was learning to explore a part of himself he'd kept hidden. Even from me. Over the next few evenings, this secret practice became a ritual. He'd try different hairstyles, experiment with makeup techniques, even mimic the way female characters in the play moved and talked. I watched, fascinated and quietly proud, as he discovered nuances of expression he'd never dared to show before. One night, he twirled in my living room, dress swirling around his knees. The soft fabric moved like it belonged to him, not just the character. "Do I look ridiculous?" he asked, laughing nervously but with a glint of excitement in his eyes. I shook my head. "No. You look amazing. Confident. Like you." He paused, gaze falling to the floor, cheeks flushing. "It's weird, Mia. I feel free when I do this. But I also feel scared. Like I'm revealing something real about myself I didn't know existed." I stepped closer and touched his shoulder gently. "Daniel, being scared is part of discovering who you really are. And honestly, I love seeing you like this, exploring yourself, not hiding behind fear." He smiled softly, but his hands still trembled slightly as he adjusted the wig. Soon, he began to experiment outside of our living room rehearsals. He'd put on a subtle wig and lighter makeup before running errands, just to see how it felt to be noticed differently. I accompanied him at first, holding his hand like a safety line, but gradually he started doing it alone. I remember one evening at the grocery store, he walked down the aisle with a quiet confidence I hadn't seen in years. People glanced, smiled politely, and he held himself tall, his head up. When he texted me afterward, he wrote, "That was scary but exhilarating. I didn't think I could feel this comfortable." And that's when it clicked for me. This wasn't just about the play anymore. This was about self-discovery. About understanding that identity isn't fixed. It can be fluid, it can be playful, it can be empowering. Late at night, we'd sit on the couch, him still in costume or makeup, me wrapped in a blanket beside him. He'd talk quietly, almost confessing to the empty room. "I think I like this, exploring, performing. Even just seeing myself differently. I never knew it could feel fun. Exciting." I reached over and held his hand. "It's not just fun, Daniel. It's bravery. You're learning to step into a side of yourself you didn't think was allowed. And I'm here, every step, cheering you on." He squeezed my hand, a mix of gratitude, nervousness, and something almost shyly tender in his eyes. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a shift between us. Not awkward. Not forced. But electric. Like the trust and intimacy we'd always had deepened, because I wasn't just helping him perform. I was helping him discover himself. The real turning point came one evening when he tried on the full costume, dress, wig, heels, makeup, and walked into the kitchen. He paused, looked at me, and whispered, "Am I too much?" I shook my head immediately. "No. You're perfect. You're confident, beautiful, bold, and completely you." His lips curved into a nervous, grateful smile. "Thanks, Mia. Really." In that moment, I realized something profound. Transformation isn't about changing who someone is. It's about revealing parts of themselves they've never dared to show. And love, real love, is being there to witness it, support it, and cheer them on without judgment. From then on, our rehearsals became more than practice. They became a space of exploration, trust, and connection, where he could test boundaries, try new things, and I could see him blossom in ways I'd never imagined. He wasn't just Daniel anymore. He was Danielle, not a fake identity, not a costume. A side of himself he was finally brave enough to embrace. And I knew deep down that our relationship had changed forever, strengthened, deepened, and filled with a new layer of intimacy I hadn't thought possible. The first time Daniel stepped outside the apartment fully in costume, I held my breath. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon, the streets buzzing with people going about their weekend routines. Daniel had insisted on wearing the full ensemble, dress, wig, carefully applied makeup. At first, I worried he'd freeze or panic halfway down the block. "You ready?" I asked, linking my arm with his. He swallowed hard, then gave a small nod. "Yeah, I think so." As we walked, I could feel the stares, some curious, some admiring, some barely concealed judgment. Daniel's hands gripped mine tight at first, but I whispered, "Just breathe. You look amazing. I've got you." And slowly, I felt him relax. Step by step, his posture lifted, his chin came up, and a confidence I hadn't seen before radiated from him. People smiled at him, he smiled back. For the first time, I realized that the courage he had found in rehearsals wasn't just for acting, it was becoming a part of him. We stopped at a cafe for a coffee, and Daniel asked to sit outside. The sun caught his hair just right, and the gentle breeze played with the hem of his dress. A group of college students at the next table glanced over and whispered. I braced myself for embarrassment, but Daniel leaned back in his chair, lifted his coffee cup, and said with a grin, "Looks like the world's watching. Let them." And he meant it. His laughter, light and unself-conscious, drew a few smiles from passers-by. People looked, yes, but instead of shame, he radiated confidence. The nervous boy I knew had softened into someone brave enough to exist fully in his own skin, or costume. After coffee, we wandered through a small boutique. Daniel's eyes lit up at the racks of colorful scarves and accessories. He picked up a delicate pink scarf and draped it over his shoulders, tilting his head at the mirror. "You look amazing," I said softly, amazed at how comfortable he was in his own body, in this side of himself he'd been exploring. He caught my gaze, a blush rising. "I feel amazing, and I don't want to hide it anymore." There was a shift between us then, not awkward, not forced, but electric. He was discovering courage, freedom, and joy. And I couldn't help but feel my heart swell. The next few weeks became a series of small experiments in public life. Daniel walked in costume to a local bookstore event. He attended a coffeehouse open mic night dressed as Danielle. Even a casual dinner at a nearby bistro became an opportunity to test boundaries. Every time, I was there beside him, hand in hand, eyes smiling, encouraging every step. Sometimes, people asked questions. "Are you in a play? You look beautiful." Daniel answered with growing ease, never flinching. And every time he did, I could see the old hesitation peeling away like an old coat. One evening, as we sat on a park bench after a long walk, Daniel took my hand and whispered, "I never thought I could feel this happy. Like I'm allowed to be seen this way." "You've always deserved it," I whispered back. "You just needed the chance to try." And in that moment, I realized the magic wasn't in the dress, the makeup, or even the role he was playing. The magic was in the trust, between us, between him and himself, between love and bravery. It wasn't always easy. Some days, people's reactions stung. Some days, Daniel wanted to retreat, cover up, go back to normal. But each time, he reminded himself of how far he'd come, and how much support he had. We celebrated every small victory, a confident laugh in public, a compliment taken gracefully, a shared moment of courage. Every time, our connection deepened, weaving trust and intimacy into a stronger bond. By the end of those weeks, I realized something profound. This wasn't just about a play anymore. It was about growth, about love, about courage, and about understanding that identity isn't fixed, it's a journey. And I was lucky enough to walk it with him. The next step was inevitable, the opening night. The stakes were higher now. Friends, classmates, strangers, all would see Daniel as Danielle, fully transformed, fully alive. And I knew that whatever happened, he would shine. Because he had already learned how to be brave, how to be seen, and how to trust both himself and me completely. Opening night arrived faster than either of us expected. The theater buzzed with energy, performers rehearsing lines under bright stage lights, stagehands scurrying about, the scent of fresh paint and polished wood thick in the air. Daniel stood backstage, wig slightly askew, makeup flawless, costume perfectly fitted. I could see the tension coiled inside him like a spring. He looked smaller somehow, more vulnerable, despite all the confidence he'd gained in the past weeks. "You ready?" I whispered, squeezing his hand. He swallowed hard. "I think so, but what if I mess up? What if everyone laughs?" "You won't," I said firmly. "Look at you. You've worked too hard, and you've become stronger than you realize. Trust yourself. And trust me, I'll be right here." The curtain call approached. Daniel's heart raced visibly, each breath shallow. He glanced at the audience seating, rows of expectant faces waiting for the show to start. "Here we go," he muttered, voice trembling. And then, with a deep breath, he stepped onto the stage. At first, the audience reaction was tentative. Whispers, curious glances. They weren't sure what to expect. Daniel faltered for a heartbeat, the old fear threatening to pull him back. I held my breath. Then he spoke. His voice was steady, soft, perfectly in character. The way he moved, the way he held himself, every gesture, every glance, radiated authenticity. He wasn't hiding anymore. He was Danielle, alive and luminous under the spotlight. And something incredible happened. The audience leaned in. Smiles appeared. Laughter, applause, genuine, warm, appreciative. Every mistake was small, easily forgiven, because he brought heart and honesty to the performance. Backstage, I cheered silently, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. He was doing it. He was shining. After the final scene, the curtain closed, and the applause thundered through the theater. Daniel's legs shook as he walked to the wings, face glowing, breath coming in short, exhilarated gasps. I ran to him, wrapped my arms around him. "You did it," I whispered. We did it," he said, voice thick. "I couldn't have done this without you." I smiled, brushing a loose strand of wig hair from his face. "No. You did it all. You just needed to see it for yourself." That night, as we walked home under the streetlights, Daniel held my hand, lighter somehow, freer. "Thank you," he said again, softly. "For pushing me, for believing in me, for being here." I squeezed his hand. "Always. That's what love is, seeing each other through fear, helping each other grow, and celebrating the courage we didn't know we had." He smiled, and I could see it. Not the nervous, unsure Daniel from weeks ago, but someone transformed, empowered, confident. Someone who had faced his fears, embraced new sides of himself, and come out stronger. And I knew, in that quiet night, that we had crossed a threshold. Not just in the play, but in our lives, together, unshakable, and ready for whatever came next.